What's up, guys? It's Dakota, and today I'm going to be going over what I think is probably one of the best decks to be playing in Modern right now, and that is going to be Mardu Pyromancer, who actually recently just took down the Modern Open in Louisville for Star City Games. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the deck, just go through, obviously, the numbers of what they're playing, the general idea of what you want to keep in mind when you're playing the deck, and just overall what kind of lines of play you're looking at, just the basic ones, nothing super in-depth, because again, it's more of the more you play the deck, either you play against it or you play with it, the more you'll kind of understand those intricate lines and how either cute or fancy you can get while playing the deck. So why is it called Mardu Pyromancer? Well, you're basically, in a disclaimer for this, it's Mardu Pyromancer because of Lingering Souls, and then the sideboard cards Wear and Tear and Campbell. And before it was called Mardu Pyromancer, really the deck gets the name because it plays for Lingering Souls. And that's usually the only white card that you have to play. There is some sideboard cards you can play that are white, but in general, most decks, all of them have Lingering Souls is like the constant thing that you will be playing when you're playing this deck. So Mardu Pyromancer gets the name because it's obviously playing red, black, and white, but it's also playing 4 copies of Young Pyromancer, which whenever you cast instant or sorcery, you create a 1/1 elemental token. This card's been around for a while. It's been kind of looking for really a home, kind of, in a deck that it can really thrive in, and alongside Bedlam Reveler, the deck seems to just kind of come together, and you play like a red-black control deck. You play like a consistent 2-color control deck while also having value for being able to easily splash the 3rd color for a really powerful spell in Modern. So the idea behind the deck, you can just kind of like cycle through your deck with Faithless Looting, draw 2, discard 2, kind of mitigated from the fact that Lingering Souls and even other copies of Faithless Looting have flashback. And even being able to discard some of your other cards to dig for lands, like your Pyromancer or Bedlam Reveler, you can still go get Kolaghan's Command to get those cards back, which makes Kolaghan's Command a really powerful spell, and it gives you main deck Artifact Hate, along with being able to clean up some little creatures, and even in the mirror, kill other Young Pyromancers. Dreadbore, kind of a catch-all to creatures and planeswalkers. The only draw between this and Terminate is the fact of this is slightly better against the control decks that try to win with Gideon, Antifairy, or Jace as like their primary win conditions. This deals with them, while Terminate obviously would not, because it only hits creatures, and sometimes they can't be regenerated. Clause on Terminate sort of kind of matters, but in general, I'm sure that you could kind of swap these in and out depending on what your meta's like. Collective Brutality, usually a card that is in the sideboard and is usually only in the main board of decks that want to be playing with their graveyard and just want to really just fuel either a Goryo's Vengeance or even get some kind of value from Kolaghan's Command. But Collective Brutality kind of does it all for this deck. It gives a creature -2/-2, kills an alright amount of creatures in Modern, like enough that you want to be killing, so it makes it relevant. Draining your opponent usually isn't like the mode you want to choose unless you're going for a little bit of reach, and it gives this deck a little bit more reach aside from the 4 bolt that it's playing in the main board, and obviously the million tokens that this deck can produce. And then also being just a pseudo duress on a body is pretty good, and the fact that you have the option to then choose these modes, get your Lingering Souls in the bin, and be able to flash it back when you get to play Pyromancer and just make, again, a million tokens. Thoughtseize is kind of the standard if you're not playing a combo deck per se, or I feel like if you're not playing a combo deck in Modern, you should be playing a deck that can play Thoughtseize, because Thoughtseize disrupts those combo decks and also helps clear the way for your Young Pyromancers and Bedlam Revelers, just to slam them down, force your opponent to top deck, and really try to deal with these threats while you're just getting a ton of value from discarding your hand of maybe all these flashback spells, drawing 3 cards so you can still cast those flashback spells, get more value from your Young Pyromancer, or just playing your Young Pyromancer and being able to Faithless Looting on turn 3 is still really powerful, or playing Pyromancer and playing a Thoughtseize is just amazing, or Pyromancer Bolt, and that's kind of where the deck gets its wheels going, is because it plays an insane amount of just 1-drop instant and sorcery spells. We're going to play 3 Thoughtseize, 4 Bolt, 4 Inquisition. Inquisition's very good. The reason why I'd imagine you play 3 Thoughtseize and 4 Inquisition instead of the other way around is that your life total is pseudo-relevant, because again, Death Shadow's still running around, all those big like zoo decks and creature decks and everything. If you can't 1-for-1 removal them on time, I'm sure that you want to have at least a few life points around so you can eventually just pivot and go back on the offensive after you clear out some of their creatures. Fatal Push, I'm still high on it as probably one of the best removal spells you can play in the format. Faithless Looting, like I said earlier, is a way to just dig for more cards, fuel Bedlam Reveler, hit those land drops, and pseudo discard 2 cards, but not really discarding cards because one of them is a Lingering Soul, so it's like a draw 2, discard 1. Discard 1.5 cards if you want to really say that. As far as enchantments, the kind of I win card, Blood Moon, if you just can play this on turn 3, you're probably winning the game, because if you're able just to go Blackleaf Cliffs into Blood Crypt or Blackleaf Cliffs into any of your other dual lands, and then just be able to fetch for a basic swamp or even your basic plains if you already have the swamp in hand, then you can just slam Blood Moon, watch your opponent more than likely just spin their wheels and just say draw go, and then not be able to interact with you while your Pyromancers and Bedlam Revelers take over the game. The mana base is where you can be pretty flexible. The reason why I say that is because it's weird that there's some lists that play Blood Moon, but they don't play the basic planes, and that is mainly because Lingering Souls, you're more than likely flashing it back. It's great when you can get both hats of it, and like obviously if you have a Pyromancer, because then you get to make 2 elementals and 4 spirits for 5 mana, which is amazing, especially in this format where you can just make infinite chump blockers. Nothing really has trample, so you could just block forever and not have to worry about your life total while also still having a clock. But it's kind of like the mana base, I say, is up to you, and the reason why I say that is because the reason why I think Mardu Pyromancer in specific, is one of the best decks to be playing in the format is because it's a consistent, for the most part, 2-color deck that even when it gets Blood Mooned, it doesn't really care, because a lot of its spells are red, and the creature spells you want to be playing are red, and obviously it's easy for you to fetch basic swamp, because there's a lot of the times where you just want basic swamp, period, to, again, maintain your life total. And playing Blood Moon is a very powerful card. Like, if you can play the card and it doesn't screw you over and doesn't mess you up, I'd say play the card, because it's just an automatic, most of the time, an automatic win. Obviously, it doesn't mean you actually win the game, but it kind of is. So that's why I think the mana base is flexible. I mean, you could just play the basic planes. Like, you don't have to play the Sacred Foundry if you're really that concerned about playing 20 lands in this deck, which I think is a lot. You could probably shave the Sacred Foundry and go to 19, because you play the playset of Marsh Flats to go get your basic land, and then also being able to get your Blood Crypt and your basic swamp, or swamps, I should say. The sideboard is really interesting. Obviously, Surgical Extraction, if your opponent's playing Magic cards, always comes in. Of course, I'm kidding. It's good against Storm, good against just the combo deck, graveyard deck matchups, Dredge. I mean, it's a necessary evil, even though Dredge isn't played a lot. Storm is a small percentage of the meta. You still don't want to lose those decks, because it's kind of a beating if you do, even though you can, again, make infinite chump blockers, etc., etc. Storm kind of doesn't care about them, and Dredge can just slowly beat you down until you just don't have anything left, and then they win the game. A 4th Collective Brutality, I'm conflicted on this. I don't know if I like having a 4th Collective Brutality, because you're already playing 3 Thoughtseize and 4 Inquisition. I think just maybe having it as the reach is maybe the reason why, but I think it's just slower than Fatal Push. I guess if this was going to be like a 4th copy of something, I'd rather this be, if it was going to be one of the modes on the card, I would either rather have the extra Thoughtseize or have this just be a Duress. The -2/-2, I'd probably rather it be a Fatal Push or a Terminate even in the spot. I'd probably actually play a Terminate instead of Collective Brutality just to swap out for the Dreadbore to go down on brutalities. And then you lose 2, you gain 2. I mean, you can't play a 5th Bolt, but I think if that's like the draw to playing the extra copy of this card, I don't think it's really worth it. I think it's just worth it playing a Terminate. 3 Ensnaring Bridge, which is kind of cute because you are playing Pyromancer and Lingering Souls tokens. So the cute thing is you could just like go to combat, swing with your thing. After you draw for turn, you have 1 card in your hand, your tokens can swing, and then you just play out whatever spell it is, and your opponent can't attack, unless they have a Noble Hierarch or a bird that they can pump or whatever, but, you know, then you're just playing against the green decks, and then you just point your removal spells at their things that can't attack, and then just get in with your dudes. So it's actually really cute. I hadn't seen this before, and I thought, oh, maybe this is kind of weird. Why would you want to do that? Blah, blah, blah. What if I gum up the ground, etc., etc.? But we're also the deck that just has a ton of removal and everything, so more than likely it isn't going to happen unless your opponent can somehow just play a bunch of Gurmag Anglers and Tassigers and what have you. Really, really big things. Campbell, I think, is another one for the Storm matchup, because obviously if they're trying to go off to this thing, it's going to kill them. It gains you life, even if it's they play 1 spell to get rid of it, they still lose 2 life, you gain 2 life, and gives you a little bit more reach against the Storm decks. Liliana the Last Hope. This card is sweet because of the fact that it can sometimes be a removal spell for a creature, or if your opponent only has 1 creature, you're able to kind of deal with it. Like the 4 toughness creatures, this can deal with, because then you can +1 to target something, give it -2, -1, and then bolt it, and then it dies. Or you can give it -2, -1, and then if it's a 3 toughness thing, you can Collective Brutality it to get rid of it. And then obviously you ultimate this card. Another kind of I win the game card, where eventually, unless your opponent can just somehow race you, or you're actually that behind that they're fine with letting you ultimate Liliana, you can just slowly start to take over the game, get more of a board, and then kind of hope that your opponent doesn't have Pyroclasm, Kozilek's Return, or Anger of the Gods to make you restart it. But in general, usually Liliana Ultimate is super hard to beat. I wouldn't try it. I wouldn't attempt it. I would stop it if you can. Lastly, Wear Tear. I mean, the fact that you can cast both halves of this card, you can get rid of Ley Lines, and you can get rid of problem artifacts like Cranial Plating. Affinities on the rise again, so having just Wear Tear in your sideboard is fine. Like I said, getting rid of even Cranial Platings, or getting rid of a big Volt Scourge or something, and even it being instant speed, which is amazing. Can tag Ink Moth X's, Blank Moth X's, anything that can wear plating really well, minus the card itself, Etch Champion. So why do I think this is one of the best decks? Kind of like what I was saying earlier, it's probably one of the most consistent decks you can play in Modern that doesn't get screwed over by Blood Moon. Decks like Grixis Shadow, while very good at disrupting and sort of kind of racing this deck, because obviously Fatal Push, like, it plays Gurmag Angler and Tassiger. The fact that Fatal Push can't hit those cards, that you need double Bolt to really get rid of them, and even then, that's 6 points of burn, 6 points of reach that isn't going to your face, and less value that they get with Pyromancer. Collective Brutality plus Bolt or something, if they want to spend 3 mana to do that, or 4 with Kolaghan's Command Bolt. All those combinations of spells just make it hard to deal with those big creatures. You need like a Dreadbore or something to really kind of tag those guys and get them out of there. And again, it's also hard when they can just go turn 2, play that, and then whatever your next spell is, I can just counter it. So that's kind of like the scenario where you just kind of not really lose, but it sucks because of the fact that the deck can just go play my big thing, counter your removal spell, counter your whatever, and then just kind of get that tempo on their side. But even then, with Shadow really falling down the ranks in terms of how much percentage in the meta it has now versus what it had before, this deck is great with Fatal Push, Bolt, Kolaghan's Command being really good, like even removal spells in their own right, because of the fact that Humans is a deck and everything. Like these, all those cards just kind of hit those ones. Obviously, Push hits even the biggest of Champion of the Parishes and Thalia's Lieutenants, while the rest of the cards, while some of them other humans have 3 toughness. There's a lot of the 1 toughness creatures, the 2 toughness creatures that all these other spells can hit. Collective Brutality, shrinking something, obviously not typically good because you can't use the duress mode that often on it unless they're playing like the weird Bant Humans kind of deck. But as far as like the cards and the decks that are really high up on the meta that are starting to see play and everything, the decks that are playing, I mean, they either just lose to Blood Moon or you just kind of infinitely remove them, stick a Pyromancer, and then just kind of go to town, making a ton of tokens, swinging, just chipping away at their life, and by the time they can either kind of stabilize, your bolts and your collective brutalities can kind of get you to reach towards the end of the game, and then having a really good sideboard plan. Again, like the collective brutality would be the one that I would kind of look at, and then Liliana the Last Hope, you can switch out with Liliana the Veil. I think Liliana the Veil is probably so good of a planeswalker that you want to be playing her, maybe instead of Liliana the Last Hope. But again, it might be more of a what you feel comfortable with. I think if you play either Liliana, you're in good shape. Obviously, in other scenarios, one is better than the other one, but they're both objectively powerful. And in the format that we're in right now and how Modern's looking right now, Campbell, I would have never thought would see play in a Modern deck, but I'm kind of glad to see it as like a cute kind of like sideboard card against burn, because even if they play one spell to get rid of it, they really have to try hard to go off, because even though they net a storm from killing or bouncing the Campbell, they still lose 2 life and you gain 2 life, which means they need to play another 2 spells to be able to kill you and reach whatever your life total to get Grape Shot. Whether that's relevant or not, I don't know, but obviously if they can't get rid of it, then it just kind of is a pain and can even win you the game that way. And Staring Bridge being one of the cute additions to the deck, and I shouldn't even say it's cute because it's actually really good. How many times I've gotten by it, even though I play my own removal in Kolaghan's command for it, it's still really annoying to deal with, and you have to draw that card to try to deal with it. And then Surgical Extraction, just another good card against said Storm decks and graveyard decks in general. So, in reality, if you're not winning the game with Blood Moon, you're just able to be super grindy and grind people out of the game, where they're using their Tarmogoyfs and Blood Braids and Tireless Trackers and so on and so forth. You're just throwing tokens in front of the way and then using your other tokens to beat in, while also just getting more blockers for those creatures, to the point where there's no reason for them to attack, because then they're just going to die on the crackback. So, in conclusion, if you're looking for a deck to play in Modern, I think Mardu Pyromancer, and you want to win, and you want to start grinding Modern tournaments, Mardu Pyromancer, I think, is probably one of the best decks you can play. I'd say it is the best deck, if not top 3 in the format right now. And that Blood Moon's just a heck of a Magic card too, and Blood Moon can just steal you a lot of games, even against the 2-color decks that aren't ready for it. So that's going to be it for this video. That's where I'm going to leave off. That's my opinion on Pyromancer. One of the things before I quit, before I leave and everything, the cute things, I think I was saying earlier, Faithless Looting, really just discarding your other flashback spells. The cute things you can do with Bridge by just drawing your card for turn, attacking, and then playing your spell afterwards, and just really abusing the fact that Bedlam Reveler also can draw you cards and everything, and the removal packages and everything. It's all sweet. The deck's great. I really suggest, if you want to get into Modern and you want to play it, budget's not an option, then I'd play it. Play the deck. It's really sweet. There's some things that you could shave, some things that you can probably cut back on, things that I would cut from the deck, but then again, I'm pretty sure the person that won this Open ended up going undefeated or only lost like 1 match. So what do I know? But that's going to be it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this sort of kind of in-depth look into Mardu Pyromancer. If you want to see more videos like this, please click the like button and consider subscribing for more Magic content, mainly Modern stuff. I'm going to be kind of getting into Standard later. I'm actually going to a Standard event this weekend, so hopefully that goes well and everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next deck tech.